Hey guys, we have reached exactly the midpoint of the Maker Summit.
Hi
Uh,
guys, we have
Hi.
reached exactly the midpoint of Maker Summit.
What are you doing, Prashasti?
Hi Akash, I'm gate crashing.
Oh no, not
But
again.
today I'm gate crashing and I have to tell you something. Okay, did you
Uh-huh.
check out the poll that we posted in the morning on the feed?
Obviously, I check them every single day.
Dude, 80% people responded saying I was born ready for the day two of the Makers Summit.
Are you
How?
serious now?
Yes, we have amazing audience. While I thought that, when I come on the stream and tell people that we have a stellar lineup of Shagun ke 101 speakers, I thought that people will think I'm biased. But you know what? People have been tweeting and posting. While there is a guy called Piyush Malan, he
Uh-huh.
not only posted a picture of the session and told, mentioned how much he loved it, but also sent a
Mhm.
picture of his notes with it. Okay.
Wow, that's a
And
dedicated
and
guy.
right? And there was this
Mhm.
other guy, Hardeep Roy, who has tweeted that not only did he love the session of Bhavin and Gaurav, but he also shared his takeaways on the tweet. We have amazing audience, I must say.
We have the best audience, obviously.
All right, I'm going to remove you for a bit because I need to thank a few people who have really helped us with this stream. So
What?
all right then. Now, before I give the stage back to Akash, I wanted to have a few quick minutes with you because I really need to mention our presenting sponsor Netcore and our co-presenting sponsors Amplitude and HPE and Info Technologies, whose support have helped us bring our dream of the Maker Summit 2021 to life. And also, you guys are doing amazing. Please keep your level of proactiveness and enthusiasm at the same level as yesterday, or better yet, take it a notch higher. I am looking forward to your views, your posts, and your tweets. I am on the lookout, and I will keep mentioning the people who tweet out the best stuff. So now I think we can call back Akash. Hi Akash.
Well, hi, I was just about to tweet, but you stopped me in between, so
You are such a great friend. All right, I'm getting
please
out of
go
your hair
ahead.
now.
Bye.
I'm getting out of your hair now because I'm pretty sure the audience really wants to listen to the panelists and not you and I bickered.
I know. Even
So,
I
all right,
do.
guys.
So, bye. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye bye then.
Okay, now that we're back to our usual transmission. So, as I was saying, we have reached exactly the midpoint of the Maker Summit. And I'd like to thank you all for being a part of this event and making this event such a big hit. Now, coming to the topic. Let's be honest, the real reason why we all have gathered here is to figure out the secret behind scaling a product. Starting a business is not the hard thing, but the real challenge is how to scale a business. Each year, 630,000 businesses open, but at the same time, nearly 6 lakh businesses stop operations. I mean, just in 2020, from Sachin Tendulkar's Smash Entertainment, Regent Taylors, to even Harley Davidson had to close their operations in India. So, how exactly do you set the foundation to scale your business and sustain it as well? That is the question we have in front of us. And to answer that, we have a talented panel who have all well experienced in scaling product and cracking the code of sustaining their success. I'd like to introduce our panelists right now. Our first panelist is Ankit Mathuria, Group CTO of OYO. Hi, Ankit. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hey Prakash,
Our,
it's great to be at Maker Summit.
our next panelist is Ramnik Khurana, co-founder and product of Linkscart. Hi, Ramnik.
Hi,
It's a
glad to
pleasure.
connect, Ankit. Yeah, hi.
Our third panelist is Pooja Patel, Vice President, Product Delivery at Loginex. Hi, Pooja.
Hi Akash, hello everyone. Nice to be here.
Our fourth panelist is Vishwanath Ramarao, CTPO ACO. Hey,
Hi, Akash.
Vishwanath.
Great to be here.
Likewise, our fifth panelist is Vikram Kumar Yeram, Country Manager Green Lake at HPE Technologies. Hi.
Hi Akash. Hi everyone.
And lastly, we have Arindam Mukherjee, former Senior Director Experience and Go Flipkart. Hey Arindam.
Hey, Akash. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, without taking any more of your time, I'd like to hand over the stage to Arindam. Please, Arindam, take over from here.
Thank you so much, Akash. And hello to everyone who've joined in at this Maker Summit. A lot of interesting sessions that have been going on. And I'm sure you're having wonderful insights coming in from every session, as Prashasti was also talking about earlier. Uh, so the topic of today's discussion, and I'm really kind of privileged to be talking to some wonderful folks who've joined in on this panel. Ankit, Ramneek, Pooja, Vikram, Vish. Thank you so much for joining in. And I must say, I was taken back a few years because back in business school, our professor, Clayton Christensen, used to lead this course, Building and Sustaining a Successful Enterprise. And we talked about a lot of things there. And hopefully, kind of, we'll talk about a few things today from learning from your experiences. So let's kind of dive in. Are you guys all ready to kind of jump in into the discussion?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, we all know when we are actually talking about scaling products, and that's the topic of the discussion, how do you build that foundation for scalable products? uh, Peter Thiel also talked about the same thing, that start small and then expand. But what does that journey look like? And Ramneek, you've been a part of Lenscard right from the beginning. Would love to kind of hear about how that journey has been at Lenscard for you. If you could just kind of share some kind of insight there.
Sure. Sure. So, Arindam, for us from the very start, it has always been about working backwards from customer needs, trying to see what we can do, how we can solve them, and then scaling up and going from there. There are multiple such examples in history of, Lenscut as we have gone across solving those problems. The first one which comes to mind as an example is that a lot of people, while buying eyewear, need their prescription, or they either need to renew their prescription or simply don't know what their power is. So we started by a very, very basic version where we took straight Google Calendar APIs, put in a Google form, and started asking people that should we come to your home to get your eyes checked up. And that was our V1 for our eye checkup program. And it was a very clunky version, not just online. It was just a Google form, but also the way we operated it is that there was a one salesperson and one optometrist going in a cab to a person's house carrying three pieces of equipment weighing 15 kgs. It was just completely unscalable, either from technology and or from physically, logistically, or from unit economic sense. But it gave us a big unlock because we started solving a real problem that customers had, and the order started to go up. Now, over time, if you open Lenskart app today, you will come across a Uber-like interface where you can see an Optum nearby, and on tap of a button, they can visit your place. What you'll also see is that those come in on a bike, and just one person comes in because we have invested heavily on the hardware side of it. We have squeezed down the equipment significantly so that it can go to the back of the backpack of the person traveling. And we have also worked on the technology side, A, on the hardware, and B, also on the user interface, where now it is a very, very seamless experience. So currently, we now have hundreds of Optums across multiple cities and more than thousands of tests being done daily. So this is being one such example. Another one is that it is very, very important for people to figure out how glasses will look on my face. And for that, earlier we began with a very basic 2D version. You kind of, had to really be a geek, use mouse to adjust the glasses on your face, and it was a simple overlay. But now, when you go online, because of advances that are there with True Depth and all that technology is coming in everybody's hands. Now, once you open the app, you are able to use augmented reality, and you can actually see glasses in very high fidelity in 3D. So those are a couple of examples which have really helped us, get started initially, understand what people want, and then scale significantly post that.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing. And I still remember, I think what drew me to Lenskart initially was those 2D kind of images, kind of wherein I could see myself wearing those glasses, and which I thought was very innovative. But what I'm kind of getting a sense of is what you're saying is, right, when we are starting off, you do things that don't scale, and learn from those experiences, learn about the customer's needs, and then kind of focus on building out the foundational pillars for scalable products. That's fantastic. So, Ankit, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts as well on this. And you've been a part of some fantastic journeys with Souk and then Amazon, and now with Oyo as well. What is your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, as Ramnik was speaking, I was just revisiting the Oyo journey that I've experienced so far. At the same time, also talking to the co-founders at Oyo. Uh, we started Oyo, or Ritesh started Oyo in 2013 with a single hotel in New Delhi. And the mission was a very simpler one, but very tough one to achieve. which is how do you provide great living spaces to a common man at a very affordable price? Now, the answer, it turns out to be that the answer lies in the unbranded hotels, which constitutes almost 85% of the world hotel industry. So then the value proposition become that how do we make these unbranded hotels good enough, and how do we empower them, how do we educate them so that they continue to offer the best customer experience, and as a result grow their revenue. So the way the OYO history started, very close to what Ramnik was saying, it started actually on an Excel where Ritesh and Anuj, they had to really convince a hotel owner. Once they got it, they convert their hotel inventory into an Excel, everything with keyed with the phone number. So whenever the customer makes a booking, they will receive a call, they will do a lookup on the mobile number, make the edit, make the bookings, and that's how it was all started. Very quickly, of course, we all realized that that cannot scale up. And as company starts to grow, the focus on the technology and product grew even more significantly. Fast forward to today, where we are operating today to more than 190,000 plus hotel and partners worldwide. All the services that we provide are provided through a software as a service using the OYO tech. And that's where the journey is never a linear one. To your earlier question, how the journey looks like, I think Ramnik will echo that the journey is a messy one. It's never a linear line. So you do take two steps, then you come back and then you revisit. And that's exactly what we have done at OYO. For instance, we developed a smart pricing solution using data science, because now we can predict that in a specific cluster, in a specific city, on any given day, what is the right price a room should be on. Earlier, hotels didn't have that flexibility. So we thought we did the right thing and we launched a feature. But then the hotel partners came back and say, hey, we need more flexibility than this because there are certain other factors that we perhaps can understand. And we brought that flexibility back to them. Similarly, they complained that we want to get in touch with you for the any sort of query that we have. So we developed the Yo Chat, which is a conversational based chat box, and we are able to answer 73% of their queries just on the chat box. So you constantly are listening. You're always putting your partner and the customer at the center. You listen to their feedback, and then you improve your product as you go along. As at Amazon, Jeff always used to say that be very, very rigid on the vision, but be flexible on the details. Because guess what? As you make your journey, you will learn tons of lessons and you will have to course correct.
Yeah. No, thanks so much. I think you bring up a very fascinating kind of a point, which is the focus on that vision or the mission statement, which becomes that shared mindset across all the folks working in that organization. And also, you touched upon the value prop element, how that translates into the value prop in front of the customers. So, Vikram, I wanted to turn to you now, and you've been kind of in the cloud services space, which has kind of become quite crowded now as well as we speak. But you guys have positioned yourself in a very nice way. Can you talk about how you thought about building out that unique positioning in the market and the value prop
Thanks,
to the
Vindam.
customers?
And if I just heard what Ramnik and Ankit just spoke about, regarding their respective organizations, which is Lenskart and Oyo, the one word that I could pick up from both their conversations is flexibility. So, whether it is Lenskart giving the flexibility of choosing the design of the spectacles, or giving the flexibility for the customers to choose the person who's going to do the measurements for their eyesight, or Oyo trying to address the needs of their customers or their partners. I think flexibility is the key, and I represent the HP Green Lake Cloud Services business within HP, and this is a very unique concept that we have from the HP portfolio. Though it is not new, it's been there for about 5-6 years now in India. But the uniqueness about it, Arindam, is this is a dedicated on-prem managed cloud offering for the customer. So it is not shared everything or a multi-tenant environment like a public cloud provider. It's a dedicated setup for the customer. And really, when we initially started it, it was called flexible capacity services, FCS. That's what we used to call it, flexible capacity services. But as the business grew, we really thought it now needed a branding, and that's how it got branded into GreenLake. And I've been associated with this business for the last 6 years, and I can tell you where we started and where we are today, and we have become truly flexible. And you think about any top workload that the customer is running, whether it is infrastructure as a service, a platform as a service, or any of the outcome-based services like a VDI or any of the AI, ML, big data kind of workloads. We are able to offer all these as a service to our customers. And we have some very, very exciting and interesting customers across various industry segments in India itself. We have a lot of startups. We have a lot of old age companies. We have public sector companies. We have BFSI customers also. So I think it's been a great journey for us. And if I just reflect upon where we started and where we reached, I think the center of everything that we did was customer, having the customer as the center. And as HP philosophy, we believe that customer first. So I think truly we have just not embedded flexibility or customer first attitude in the product or technology, but in the engagement model, in the pricing model, in the commercial construct that we create for the customer, and finally the terms and conditions or the agreement we sign with the customers. So through and through, it is customer first and truly flexible in that sense. So that's what I wanted to share with all of you today.
Fantastic. No, I think that's a common theme that is emerging from all of you guys, like keeping the customer at the center. And obviously, that's how you learn about how to go after the right problem statements. And Vish, with ACO, you've kind of been through a similar journey over the last year or so. You guys started with micro insurance products and now obviously kind of diversified quite a bit. How has that journey been, and what kind of started you guys off on the micro insurance, and then how did you guys think about diversifying?
Yeah, I think we play in a space that's as old as the Roman Empire, right? Insurance is not a new business model by any means. So when we think about delivering value within a domain like this that's as old as that, we have to first get really close to the problem, really close to the consumer, and understand what is it that they might need, right? And one thing that became clear through our studies when the founders spent time on the ground was, this eventually it's a financial services business. And when you're working with financial services, a lot of the problem comes down to trust. Your regulator might promise that you have a lot of money in the bank. Your government might say, hey, look, insurance companies can very rarely go down. This is not a traditional startup ecosystem. But end of the day, for customers to build trust with you, you have to put yourself out there and go meet the customers where they are. And so for us, that became the mantra, to introduce ourselves to our customers in the most humble way possible. And that's why we did micro insurances, right? So we have more than 6 crore people that use that product today, adding insurance and assurance more than anything to everyday conveniences. It could be a ride on your Ola, it could be a stay in Oyo. Doesn't matter what you do. When you feel assured, when you feel the sense of a safety net, you're more likely to then up-level yourself and recognize the need for more of those types of products and services, and then you might be willing to build a relationship. So for us, it is all about sort of being humble, starting small, being close to the customer, and doing whatever it takes, and being patient with that journey.
Fantastic. No, I think what I've heard from all of you guys, I think throws 2 or 3 kind of key points. One is kind of really go deep to understand your customer very, very well, so that you are able to nail down that problem statement. keeping the customer at the center. The second thing which I'm hearing is having that shared mindset around the mission statement or the vision, which usually would come from the founders. And the third is kind of having that flexibility to operate so that we are kind of being able to really solve the problem the way it is supposed to be solved, and doing certain things maybe initially which don't scale, and then getting the insights and then transferring it to find the right product. Perfect. So let's switch gears now, and as we think about scalability, usually there are three things which come up, like the system. We're talking about systems, we're talking about processes, we're talking about people. So let's go deeper here, and maybe kind of Pooja, I would want to start off with you now. Uh, when we're talking about systems, one of the core pieces which product folks, designers, everyone would kind of pretty much obsess over are the metrics, right? What all are the metrics to track, be that functional metrics, non-functional metrics? You've had a long career in product. You've seen kind of companies and organizations scale as well. How have you seen metrics evolve, and how have you gone about thinking around metrics?
Yeah. So one very interesting thing about metrics is there are like various type of metrics, right? And a lot of people, a lot of organizations sometimes get entangled in all of these matrices and then are not able to decide the journey, whether it's going in the right direction or not. So, in all the organizations that I've worked in, we followed like key matrices and then we focused on those and then we follow them. So some of the very, very important ones is when you start doing your business and you start building a product, I think output metrics become very, very important. And those are business side metrics, right? What kind of revenue are we looking at, right? What is the customer churn? What is the customer acquisition cost? And even after doing all of this, am I able to onboard the customer in the right manner, in the right time? Am I able to, engage the customer enough so that they are not only using the key pieces of the product, but using the entire platform to gain efficiencies. So those are, some of the business matrices that we looked at, but more from a leadership standpoint. But when we go a little deeper and try to build product priorities and try to build the product ground up, we're looking at, key process matrix, right? Like what kind of efficiency is my product or feature going to get in? What kind of cycle times or what kind of processes are going to be reduced? Am I going to be able to reduce overheads in certain areas? Because I primarily come from B2B products, completely SaaS based. So for us, it's very important to not only look at the business matrices, but also the process matrices, which are gonna, which are gonna define the customer success journey. And our focus sometimes goes from the customer, our product customers to the customer's customer, right? So it's like one level deeper. You have to start thinking about, the efficiencies that I'm going to bring in, not only in my customer's life, but the efficiencies and the value that I'm going to add in my customer's life. And that becomes a little more difficult and a little like more complex when you look at B2B products. And of course, then we have performance KPIs and performance matrices where you can set up CSAT or NPS score and then define, how things are working on the product, which areas you want to improve, etc. So it's like, a murky mix of all of these. And sometimes a lot of organizations get hung up in certain areas, and our prioritization, goes in that goes in that direction. So I think it's very important to set up levels at which each matrices will be tracked, rather than having everybody track all of them at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a very good point, Pooja, and I've personally gone through that journey as well. And I wanted to ask you a follow-up question. Is there anything like too many metrics? Have you suffered from that?
That's what I started with, right?
Yeah.
How much is too much? And that's why what we try to do is we try to keep the business matrices at the leadership level, so that when you're actually building the product vision, we're looking at those. And once you have the product vision built, then you go into the other operational matrices where you're looking at onboarding time, cycle time reduction, etc. And those don't have to be at the product level. Those can be tracked at a feature or a module level, so it gets a little more easier to track them. But yeah, it's very important to have not too many matrices, because otherwise you're winning in some areas, you're losing in some areas, and you don't have any sense of achievement, and you don't have like a sense of vision coming out of
Yeah.
any of the activities that around the KPI tracking. So yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
Okay. Yeah.
compartmentalize tracking metrics is something that we've done everywhere.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. So we talked about prioritization, and obviously, when we are talking about prioritization, we're talking about the product development process that kicks in. And when we're talking about the product development process, we cannot but talk about not talk about the stack, right, which we are building. And as we kind of as organizations grow, the stacks evolve. Uh, and what I've seen personally in my kind of journey at Flipkart as well is you pretty much evolve your systems from monolithic systems to service-oriented architectures and kind of really going deeper there. Uh, Vish and Ankit, I wanted to hear your experience. Vish, maybe I can start off with you. At Acco, how did you guys think about evolving the stack?
Yeah. Look, I think one thing is definitely clear in your 0 to 1 journey or your early days. You really don't know your customer, right? You think you do, but you don't. And that impacts everything about how you build systems. You made assumptions in the way things are going to pan out in the future, most of which will change. So it's very important early on when you think about technologies. You want to be ready for scale, but you really don't want to pay for that too early upfront. And so you're looking for agility and speed as much as possible. You're trying to keep it modular so you can change, you can
Yeah.
throw away stuff, you can build new stuff. And that trumps any sort of self-created constraint of, look, my database can go 10x the volume in 2 days. Like oftentimes you probably don't need that, right? And so it's very important for early businesses to be set up for flexibility and speed of execution. And those are the common mistakes we make, right? Whether it's a monolith or whatnot, getting those fundamentals right early on really helps. The other thing that, again, very early on we get wrong is whether you build a monolith or whether you build a services architecture from the get-go, the basic practice fundamentals need to be there, whether that's monitoring, whether that's logging, whether that's ability to see what's going on. If those are missing, you will pay a very steep price as you grow, because guess what? You're going to change a lot of things in the next few years. And when you change things, it will break. And then something breaks, if you don't know what's going on, you don't know how to fix it. And so I think I would highly sort of I would think about agility, speed of execution, as well as ability to monitor and understand your system as best as you possibly can.
Got it. Got it. And Ankit, kind of a follow-up to that as well is kind of how do you think about building in-house versus plugging in third-party kind of software, just to kind of maintain on the agility part that Vish talked about?
I think I completely concur to what Vish said, and if I can just double down a bit on the agility part, right? What are the things that one can do from a technology point of view to enable business to grow rapidly whenever the time comes? There is a different, there's a mindset that one needs to build is around standardization versus customization. Now, if you look at, let's assume e-commerce as a solution where you're operating in multiple categories, the bias might be to let me customize all of my experience to the customer based on the category that I operate in. Now, there is nothing wrong with that mindset, but each and every startup, especially when you are very young, you need to understand that the more and more you standardize, more it will allow you to scale whenever the time is right. So for instance, what do you want to standardize? You perhaps may want to standardize your core style, maybe your programming language, maybe your logging practices, maybe your service standards, maybe the security that you use within those services, right? And you want to customize only when it is really, really required, because customization will slow down the pace of agility by default. So if you are in e-commerce, perhaps your first iteration, you just want to have a standard search algorithm that runs for you across categories. Maybe you don't need to build your first customization search because you want to see how your customer reacts and be very, very sure when is a need for the customization is required. Second thing, and this goes back to actually one of the great learnings that I had when I was working at Royal Bank of Scotland, where we were really trying to minimize the latency in our systems. So of course, it was algorithmic trading solutions. We were getting data from exchanges and we were building algorithms to run and then trade back in the exchange. So the faster you retrieve the data, the faster you can outbid your competitor there. And we were of the opinion that the way only for us to do that is to do a chip programming, where start writing code at the chip level, basically, so that you can reduce the number of operating systems call. But I had a mentor who actually proved it to us that you don't need to go and make such really those customized solutions on day one. And he proved us actually wrong, and thankfully so, that just on a Java, the way you write your Java code can be heavily optimized, and you can receive majority of your optimization just within the high level programming language. And that was a great lesson for us, that while it may look very savvy for us to go for different solutions, just don't do it just because you like it. Just make sure that the overall cost that you will end up paying of doing that. But if you are very convinced, if it's a personalized solution and you have to do it, please do it. But just be wary about the cost that the cost that comes with us.
Got it. Got it. No, absolutely makes sense. And let's kind of go a bit deeper here. And this is something which is kind of from personal experience. Also, I've seen this. And going back to what Pooja was talking about, the prioritization part of it, right? When we are prioritizing across different pieces, we always end up talking about tech debt. We in the initial stages, we will kind of mount on the tech debt part of it. How have you kind of thought about prioritizing tech debt? Because many a times that ends up falling in the back burner, and then automatically after a few months you will think like, okay, this is just not scaling enough, we need a re-architecture. And then I've seen to the other end of the spectrum as well. At Flipkart, we have now tech initiatives which kind of drive the technology kind of evolution part of it. So how have you guys thought about the prioritization when it comes to kind of the tech systems and the work that needs to be done to scale them up? So Vish, maybe I'll start off with you the first.
Sure. Look, at ACO, I will be honest with you and everybody listening in. We have significant tech debt, right? We have dealt with significant tech debt, and we've had our ups and downs with it. One thing that really is important to understand is, there are some types of debt that are okay, right? The impact is local. It may be a poorly written module. It's okay, right? It's not going to bring you down. But there are certain choices that you might have made very early on that will significantly hamper your ability to scale and significantly hamper your ability to go fast. And those are ones that you need to be very sure about or very aware about from the very beginning. And as you start hitting that stepwise scale, you're starting to take action towards it, right? There is no moment in time when it is right to work on tech debt. And if it is slowing you down, it's probably already too late, right? And then you will pay massive cost of a re-architecture or a redo. And in the meantime, you still have to fly your business. And so that becomes a significant challenge. And so if you're working with any sort of a technology, I think you need somebody who has been on that journey before, who can take you on that same journey on top of the mistakes that they've made, help you avoid those same ones. And so our process has been that, look, we will always identify high impact decisions that we are taking. And that is at a very deep level in your stack, like a data model. And we will try to ensure that continuously we are gardening for it, that we are catering for it, and that there is no point in time where you feel like, I cannot do this anymore. And that brings people along also, somewhat nicely, right? No engineering team wants to reach a point where you stress them out by saying, look, you have to redo the system overnight and you have 3 months to get it up back again. And so that continuous process is the key to managing technical debt, and identifying high priority areas and gardening it continuously is the only way that I have seen successful tech debt getting managed.
Yep. And do you guys, just to kind of help the audience visualize this better, like, do you guys reserve a certain amount of bandwidth on a continuous basis to keep clearing off the tech debt or something like that, or how do you guys go about operating?
For us, it is about identifying the right tech debt areas. And so we have our architects and our principals call that out vociferously and ensure that there is attention paid by the organization to those things before they become too late. And then we have tracks and separate initiatives for those things. So we don't do the version where everybody gets 40% off for technical debt. We've tried that. It somehow doesn't work for us because you end up maybe taking on, nobody has a definition for tech debt, right? And so you end up doing all kinds of over engineering as well, thinking that you're actually solving technical debt. When in fact, what you really want to identify are critical areas where you have significant, inertia, and that's something that you want to solve for. And so for us, identifying those critical areas and putting initiatives around making those better, whether it's a database cleanup, whether it is application scalability, whether it is interface design, those are the types of things that we identify as separate pieces and work on them.
Got it. Okay, so let's keep moving on out here. So what I'm hearing from all of you guys, at least on the system side of things, is it's important to kind of focus on the fundamentals. The standardization versus customization piece is very important. Understanding the impact that the system level kind of tech debt can actually have is important to take a decision. Let's kind of talk a bit more about the second component, which is the processes, which help us remain agile, which help us kind of keep moving forward. And Pooja, since you mentioned prioritization in the previous comment, I'd go back to you first. How have you been thinking about the product planning processes, and how has that evolved over time, right? When we're talking about OKRs or strategies, tactics, metrics, all of that, how have you been thinking about that?
So I'll just talk a little bit about how the planning process evolved, and maybe I'll go back to Vishal's point and talk a little bit about how we prioritize even those tough areas that are tech debts and how our entire prioritization works. So being in like B2B SaaS area, right, there is always either some stakeholder or some customer who's throwing a spanner in the works, right? Somebody wants something, and our entire existence is defined by whether that someone is powerful enough to actually really disrupt or make our product plan. So that always happens in our areas, because we work towards making our stakeholders and customers really, really happy and add value to their life. But we've constantly gone back and forth, from this model where you're trying to make people happy, and you're trying to make the product at the same time. From that area to actually making it a little more methodical, rather than working in all the directions. So like at various points in time, we started from the product vision, like I was talking earlier, and then we start looking at all the spanners that are going on. We're trying to constantly juggle between capacity and priorities. So some of the methods that we've successfully used, and it's again a little bit theoretical, but very, very value adding, if you will, right? So many times we started using the Moscow method, where you're constantly looking at what's a must have versus what's a should have, could have, versus something that's complete no, and then you look at this, try to fit it in, and roll things off very, very quickly. Like you always want to have like to-do list, but at the same time you want to have a list that you don't want to do, and be very focused on that, because that list can creep into your to-do very, very quickly, right? Then at many levels we started doing RISE scoring, where you're looking at for certain areas you do need that. You're looking at the reach, you're looking at the impact, you're looking at the confidence of the product person, and then trying to manage all of this with the efforts that are required to deliver the feature. We also look at the Kano model, where you're looking at the user's needs versus user satisfaction, and then trying to fit your features in, whether it is like a very, very basic and a hygiene feature, or whether it's like a self-esteem in Maslow's world, or a delighter to the user, or whether it's like a performance feature, and you try to. So you can constantly use these models, and we've constantly done that for actually prioritizing and making our planning process robust. And one more thing that which we did with our planning processes, we try to compartmentalize. Why we have like a 2-year, 3-year vision, we have a 1-year roadmap. At the same time, we have like quarterly commitments. So we have chance to constantly go back to the working area and make changes wherever there are required. And coming back to Vish's point, where we talk about tech debt, right? I personally have felt that if you look at a feature or anything that's coming in your on your board, it's very important to see, what is the cost of delay, and that's what we measure for every tech debt item. We look at the cost of delay, and then we decide whether and then we put it on the urgency and the high value scale, where we see that is it urgent and is it high value, right? Not everything which is high value is going to be urgent, and not everything that is going to be urgent is going to yield a high value. So you constantly try to put, use these set frameworks to make sure that you're taking the right decisions, not only for the product but also for the customer. So like while we have the customer on focus, and the customer wants 20 features, and you need 10 of them to increase your revenues, at the same time you have to say that if you're going to go at the same scale, are you really going to meet the objective 2 years down the line, which may not be the case, right? Very easy to fall off if you're not keeping those in mind. The other one, thing that I'd like to say, that's very, very simple. We do that subconsciously in our own lives, where we, look at the Eisenhower matrix, where we see that what's important, what's urgent, and try to say that if it's important and urgent, do it right now. If it is important and not urgent, then you decide when you're actually gonna, do it, and park the time for that, and track this meticulously, because again, this can fall off the cracks. And if it is, urgent but not important, then try to delegate, and then, rest is all out. So there are like various methods available. Looking at the context of the organization, looking at the situation, you can decide what works the best, and it's very simple to create a plan once you have all of these tools in place.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you so much for sharing some of these wonderful frameworks. I'm sure the audience will find them helpful. Ramneek, now a tougher question for you, right? And it's a two-part question. The first one is perhaps the easier one, which is, like 5 years ago, the way Lenskart used to plan the product development process versus now how it plans. What are the key differences that you see? That's the part one of the question. The part two, the tougher one, is when we talk about prioritization, invariantly kind of the automatic question that comes up is like, how do you resolve dependencies across different teams, right? And many a times that is actually a real life thing, because to roll out a particular feature or a task, there are dependencies on other systems, getting into others' roadmaps. As the organization scales up, that becomes a complex kind of piece, right? How have you gone about solving for that? So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because what we have actually tried to do is go back 5 years and start doing things now the way we used to 5 years back. So to give you a little bit of context, prioritization frameworks and OKRs are very important, but successful implementation of these frameworks do need the right structure in place. So what happened is we initially started, of course, with a small tech team of 20 odd members. Everyone was fully involved in the business. We knew exactly what to prioritize. That slowly grew into a team of 150 plus members. And what happened in the middle is that we initially organized ourselves into platforms where teams were working as per tech stack. So there's a big Android team, big iOS team, Java backend team, and so on and so forth. This became very monolithic, and what happened is there were these huge, Asana, Jira's, Google Sheets, etc., whatever you may, and every quarter someone would have to juggle through those 200 priorities and figure out what to do. And then priorities have different matrices, right? So customer service matrices might be NPS, you might have revenue matrices, and then how do you weigh between them and things of those nature. So about a year back, we decided to hit refresh here. And what we currently do is we are organized in about 15 odd pods, each with 8 to 10 members, comprising of both backend, Android, iOS, quality engineers, and everyone in the team. And the idea is for it to be fully self-sufficient unit. and each one led by a tech lead and a product manager. They are along with that. There's a business head which goes along with that. It might be customer service for their projects, and then the OKR will probably be NPS, or it might be some revenue generating pods and things of those nature. So for with this methodology, what we are able to do is actually go back to the earlier times where each team is self independent and is able to take their own calls, and it makes it very very interesting for them as well, because they are now able to connect with the business once again. They have a problem statement for to solve for the customer, and they can pick their own projects and iterate on it till they achieve their goal. So this has really worked very well for us, and I mean, 6 months after launching it, we were able to churn out 2 times more projects than what we did in the whole last year. So this has been really good for us.
That's amazing to hear. And you touched upon a very important point of the execution of these pieces heavily depends on the kinds of organization structures and the communication frameworks that are there in the organization. And coming to communication frameworks, Vikram, you run a large enough team, and how have you seen kind of communication frameworks evolve, and what all are the things that have worked, what all are the things that have not worked?
Yeah, thanks, Arindam. In fact, I'll echo what Pooja said. We are offering, we are a B2B, offering, portfolio. So we deal with large customers, and the key driver for us is how to make a difference for their customers. I think that's what Pooja mentioned. See, because if you are serving a financial institution or a manufacturing company who's setting up a large ERP setup, it is all about how do we make a service more efficient or more effective for their customers and drive the desired business outcome they're looking at. So communication is absolutely important. So when we started this whole offering under the branding of flexible capacity services, we thought that probably somewhere this is getting diluted, customers thinking it is about maybe infrastructure as a service, or is it some kind of service. So there was definitely thinking around how to brand it and how to communicate better the value that we are going to deliver out of this portfolio to our customers. Point number one. Point number two, I think our CEO Antonio announced in 2019 that HP is going to become a edge to cloud as a service company. So he set out this clear roadmap for us, where he said by 2022 all the products, solutions and services from the HP portfolio will be available to our customers on a pay-per-use consumption-based model. So it really accelerated the pace at which we were transforming our offerings to the market, and hence the need for creating a brand and communicating very very aggressively to our customers. So that's where we came out with this entire branding around GreenLake. And then since we were almost getting ending up competing with the public cloud offerings in some form or the other, so we also had to add the cloud services to that whole branding. So we are now GreenLake Cloud Services. So the branding and the communication is very clear that we are in the consumption based pay per use model, and it is just not that we are offering something same which is already available in the market, but is a very unique on-prem dedicated setup for the customers. And also it moved our communication away from capacity to offering workloads, or helping customers manage their apps and data better. So it was all about workloads. So the communication is very very spot on, that we want to deliver business outcomes for the customers. And any workload, first want to advise the customer what is the best place for it to be, whether it is better suited on-prem or better to be off-prem or in the public cloud, like which just mentioned. When you're starting from 0 to 100 or whatever, you don't want to carry any baggage, right? You want to see what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and maybe get rid of it. So I think that is a fantastic approach, works very well for startups, and we have seen this work for very large customers also, who are taking some new initiative around big data or on AI ML ops, because they have huge amounts of data, very set processes or architectures for their IT landscape. So for them to really try something is not going to be very easy, right? Because they are running a big shop out there. So try something new, works, keep it, doesn't work, move on. So I think this kind of request also started coming to us, and to reduce the risk for our customers. I think it is all about risk mitigation. So the entire offering that we offer to the customers offering is to share the risk with the customer. And there is a risk reward also that we offer. The faster the customer grows, the cheaper it is going to be. So it is incentivizing the customers to embrace some of these offerings much faster. So the more the customer consumes, the cheaper it is going to be. And that is how we have seen our entire communication strategy is about delivering business outcomes for the customers. It is not about we don't talk IT at all. It is all about delivering business outcomes for the customers. And since it is all about business outcomes, we just don't end up talking to the IT people. We end up talking to the business leaders who are owning those projects or initiatives. And invariably, earlier the better for us, but we get into discussions with the finance people because they have a certain way of calculating either the TCO or the process of budgeting that they have. Then the whole discussion about capex, opex, all these discussions come in. So our communication and our engagement with the customers has been try to identify the persona who are going to be influential for decision making, and have a very very focused and specific communication for that particular customer.
Fantastic. So I think one of the interesting things that's coming out and is how I'm trying to kind of synthesize all of this that you've talked about is it seems like we want certain desired behaviors to come up in the organization, be that people looking at the metrics or people thinking about prioritization the right way, or kind of working in smaller setups like pods and thinking about the customer success. So it all means that people, that pillar of people is a very, very core pillar, right? To pretty much bring everything that we are talking about out in a successful manner. So, and a question which I want to ask each one of you guys, and all of you guys have hired people into your teams, into the organization. So, when you're thinking about hiring, right, what's the kind of thought process with which you've operated across your experiences? Maybe I'll start off with Ankit first. And what is the kind of mindset you're looking for when you're hiring talent?
Sure. I think first and foremost for us is the person needs to have a growth mindset. And what I mean by that is the person should be eager to devote and continuously upskill their skill, because the world and the technology around is changing at a rapid, fast pace. So you got to have the growth mindset where you are constantly challenging yourself to learn something new. Second is how well do you know your customers in your current job today? I'm assuming it's a lateral hiring that I'm doing. I'm always focused on finding that do you understand your business that you are in today? And many a times at technologists, some of us have this notion that I need to know technology, but as knowing business is not my domain. I do not believe in that. I think while nobody's expecting a technologist to, of course, own maybe a beta sort of a metric, but you should be able to explain and understand for yourself that how your customer are using your product, what are they liking about it, and what they are not liking about it. So when I'm talking to someone, I'm looking for these two primary things to make sure, even if they do not have the right skill set, but do they have the right attitude to grow? And then second, how well do they understand their job, and how well do they understand their current customers? Among other things, of course, having a high level of ownership means a lot for early startups, because a person might be playing multiple roles. And you need people who can roll up their sleeves and play multiple roles as and when the situation demands.
Okay, Ramneek?
Yeah, for us, the first important thing is curiosity and ability to learn, because every time that we are working on this problem might be old, but we are looking for very, very new ways to solve it, which have not existed before. So ability to learn and having a high curiosity is the number one thing. Then the second thing that we look for after that is entrepreneurial nature, because once they have figured out a solution, this is what matters. And this is what Ankit also alluded to, the ability to roll up your sleeve and do whatever it takes to make it happen. It might be, getting the right talent in the respective teams. It might be figuring out a new way to solve a particular problem, or it might be talking to customers, empathizing with them, and trying to see how that problem can be solved. So those are two key things for us. One is the ability to learn and extreme curiosity, and second, entrepreneurial nature.
Okay. Pooja?
So for us, it's like Ramnik was saying that the curiosity, right? How do you really ask questions and get your way around? Do you want to learn more or not? And again, going back to what Ankit was saying, I just was reading a tweet from Jason Lemkin, who said that your dev team need to know about the customers for real, and your sales team needs to know about the product for real. This was just like 2 days back. Less common than you think, right? So that goes to how much are you willing to go beyond the call of your duty, and how much are you passionate about adding value to not yourself, because it's very easy to make out, right? You come across candidates who are wanting to add value to themselves, but in one conversation in 10 minutes you can know whether they're passionate enough to add value to your customers and to the product, and whether they're in sales, product, technology, it doesn't matter. And that's the key that's going to remain for us.
Okay. Okay. Vish?
Yeah, I think Ankit, Ramnik, and Pooja have already covered quite a bit of the same things that we look for. But I'll just add two things that are important for us. One is being successful in handling ambiguity, right? Just there's so much of it. Nobody has the answers. So you need to be the one that can work and thrive in that environment. And so that's very important in an early stage startup like ours. And I think especially because we're in the financial services space, delayed gratification is important. Are you the person that is willing to wait a few years in order to build something big, or are you the person that quits something midway? Right? You haven't quite achieved your goal. Are you ready to sort of throw in the towel? So we look for a little bit of that grit and delayed gratification, along with the ability to handle ambiguity.
Okay. Vikram, you want to add
Yeah,
anything?
I think everybody has already covered most of the important things: growth mindset, customer understanding, learning ambiguity. I think Vish, I was about to say the same thing, that managing uncertainty, because we are all in sales. And I remember Pooja talking about the spanner guy. So in a deal, there will somebody who will come and throw a spanner, and the whole deal goes for a toss. So I think managing that uncertainty is very, very important. And we really want people to think out of the box, because I will tell you, we are all IT salespeople, fundamentally, but the level of financial understanding that we have had in the last 2 years is amazing. We can have any kind of discussion on IRR, NPV, depreciation benefits in capex, tax benefits on opex. What is cost of capital, what is weighted average cost of capital. I mean, if customer comes and says my cost of capital is zero, then I know he doesn't know anything about it. So that is a kind of level of understanding that we have developed, because we are conversing with CFOs, and this is, we have learned on the job. Nobody has actually probably taught us this so well, but the job has taught us. So I think really looking at understanding, and I like what Pooja also said. This is a constant endeavor for us to make our salespeople know our offering better, and the people who are creating the offering in worldwide and the portfolio team, we keep telling them, but this is what customers need. So please talk to the customer first. Okay, so I think that's all from my side.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. So we seem to be focusing a lot more on people with a growth and a learning mindset, high agency folks, and kind of people who can handle ambiguity. So fantastic. So the last question that I have for all of you guys is, last year and even continuing, the pandemic pretty much forced us to rethink, and go back to the drawing board in several aspects. We talked about a lot of things, we talked about a lot of frameworks, but I'm pretty sure a lot of those have been revisited over the last year. So again, starting with kind of Ankit, what all things have you guys revisited in terms of what we already discussed? And what all are the things which you think are going to be the permanent ones, going to stay going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting year for me personally, because of course I was coming from Souk Amazon, which saw rapid growth during the COVID times, where the sellers and the customers really relied on us to deliver stuff for them, especially when the lockdowns were enforced. And then to Oyo, which of course was the perhaps hospitality was the one of the biggest sector that was impacted negatively by the lockdowns and by the COVID pandemic. So while there are a lot of personal suffering that we all have went through, I think one thing that has stand out to me is that each of the teams that I work with, they regain their focus on the core values and truly try to understand that what really works for us and able to prioritize much more cohesively than perhaps what previously was done. For us, especially at OAO, investing more and more in the technology and product has yielded better results. When the guests were looking bit afraid to check into the hotels, we had to come up with a product which allows customers to sanitize their homes in front of their eyes to build that trust back into. So you have to, of course, constantly innovate, but able to focus onto the core values that you work really served us well. To your point, what will continue to stay? Um, I think there's the investment that we see in the technology today or over the last year. I think I've gone through of the roof, and I think I expect the same investment to continue for the time to come. Um, I mean, there is hardly any store that you'll know today which is not trying to serve customers remotely through some interface, could be a WhatsApp, could be a website, or multiple means. So I think the investment in that technology and the product is going to continue. Obviously, some segments, whether it's telemedicine, will grow quite a lot, and some of the sectors will grow. I think for hospitality, we feel there is a lot of pent up demand where the customers are eager to go out and venture in the wild once more. So we are pretty bullish about that. In terms of the second trend I see, I think work from home is here to stay. Let's face it, we all become much comfortable in working in our pajamas now and then take meetings on Zoom or what web not. So I do think some form of the work from home will stay, and it will itself will become an economy of its own, where more and more investment in how do you collaborate with your employees across the board. You will see a lot of innovation happening in that space.
Got it. Okay. Ramneek?
Yeah, I think a lot changed during this period, and teams had to really come together to figure out some solutions around that. Just as an example, as soon as the lockdown restrictions were put in place, we had a staff of close to 3,000 people who were suddenly locked down in their houses. And what we did is we spent a couple of days and built a new ecosystem for them to offer selling via assistance and online. So we came up with an app for that, which they can download on their Android devices at home, which allowed them to reach out to the customers which they have already serviced via their stores when they were open, and whose prescription was about to get expired, or they were reaching out to us for seeking help during this period, because we were one of the few players who were able to offer services during lockdown, owing to our end-to-end supply chain infrastructure. And what this did is it allowed all these people to stay on company payrolls. We were able to get through this without a single person being let go from this team. And they were able to do selling via existing Android apps using these tools that were built out for them. And what we see is that the pace of change will continue, and the companies which will really, really thrive are the ones who are able to adopt to them really well going forward as well.
Got it. Okay. Pooja?
So I think a lot of things that we would take for granted, were rebased, right? Like for me, and especially for product teams, it's so important to constantly whiteboard, constantly brainstorm, and just being in one room and looking at people's faces, whether they're accepting something or they're not accepting, something was like just a given, right? I mean, that's okay. You can make decisions and you can course correct based on the expressions that people have. So those were the things taken for granted for all along, and that really the reality struck, and we started realizing that this is not going to be working like anymore. So for us at Loginext, we do believe that working together not only increases empathy, also increases like the emotional quotient of our employees. We want to come back to work. So we've already started, and we've started taking all of these things that were granted for us more seriously. And we now enjoy our brainstorming sessions not only on Skype but also in person. So for us, it was a learning that this may stay for long, but apparently we've tried to build a model where we can get people back to work, so that we can enjoy these benefits of co-working and coexisting in one room. And yeah, that's about it for us.
Okay, fantastic. Vish?
Yeah, see, for us, communication is such an interesting thing, right? It's when you're sitting in around your desk and communicating with a few people, information flows very quickly, but it also gets locked into that team of people, right? It doesn't rise up and it doesn't become useful cross-functionally in some cases. Visibility is reduced and so on. So one of the actually interesting things that the pandemic did is it brought everybody on Slack and made everybody a lot more chatty, right? And so now it's easier to sit from your console and sort of observe what is working and what is not working, because everybody is talking and you can dip in and out of the context much more quickly, which was obviously very, very difficult when in the physical world. And so that's something that I'm hoping personally that we will still stick with, that our employees are chattier, they feel empowered to express themselves, and that all of that information is contextually visible across the organization. That's one thing that I don't want to change. So even when we come back, we hope to continue to be very chatty.
Okay, so looking at a chattier ACO group then. All right,
Definitely.
Vikram?
Yeah, I think the pandemic threw some real challenges at us, because in a sales organization you have to be with the customer, you have to have those technical discussions, and probably have those commercial negotiations face to face. They don't happen virtually. So in the first half, just reflecting, it was almost a year ago, same time last year, that the pandemic actually started becoming evident. And it was also the end of the fiscal year for the customers. So suddenly in the first half we saw a lot of projects getting delayed, or new projects being taken up to cope up with the uncertainties that the pandemic threw up. So we definitely feel that we have some better ways of interacting and communicating with the customers, but we really can't wait to get in front of the customers and have those techno commercial deals and negotiations and close deals. So me and my team are roaring to go and meet our customers.
Fantastic. No, I think it's amazing that that we all went back to the fundamentals that we started off with an hour ago when we were discussing. We talked about customer first. We talked about having kind of the right mission statement to rally around, the values that bring people together. And we talked about people with that shared mindset, people who can handle ambiguity, and high agency folks who would not stop at anything. And if you have those fundamental blocks in place, then even when you have your backs to the wall, like what the pandemic did to all of us, you would be able to kind of keep scaling your products even then. So it's been fantastic discussing with you guys. We have a few questions from the audience as well, and I just wanted to kind of take it one by one. So the first question to Ankit, and the question is, what were some of the major challenges you faced when you started the journey of Oyo?
Interesting. So of course it's been just about a month, so early days. I won't call it really a challenge per se, but I think it's just about maybe doing a bit more to what we were already doing, which is being a bit more long-term thinking. Of course, at Amazon, we focus on making sure that we build products which does not last for now, but also customers looking for the long term. So increasing a bit of focus on the long-term thinking is definitely one of the areas for our focus. And the second, perhaps, that we're trying to achieve is to how do we get even more and more closer to the customer. So building mechanisms like listening to the customer calls, have engineers getting visited to the partners so that they can learn how the software is being used, what is the feedback that is being get, rather than relying on the sales team or on the marketing team to do that. So how do you get us closer to the customer? But those are the two areas that we continuously more focus on. Otherwise, as a SaaS company, as you can imagine, there are never a shortage of fun days, as I'm sure Pooja will also agree to that.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. The next question is for Vikram, and the question is from Akshat Sharma. And he asks, specifically from the economies of scale point of view, how does the private cloud fare versus the public cloud with respect to targeting low maturity or startup customers?
Very good question. In fact, this comes up in many discussions we have. I think if it is a very new innovative thing, maybe you are better off do it in a public cloud because of the software stack and the ability to experiment for a short period of time. I think it's learn quick or fail quick. But when you start, serving your customers, and when it is a full-fledged offering or a product, and when you have a certain SLA and you are bound by norms of protecting your customers' data, you need all the security and privacy and stuff like that, and the load is also reasonably predictable. What your customers want and how you're going to serve them. I think that's when it makes sense for you to have your own private cloud, because it's much more under your control. You can manage, monitor, and use it the way you want to use it. And the economies of scale, I think, are definitely comparable. And as I said, these days every opportunity is evaluated on all these counts, and we have seen that we've been able to offer very compelling value proposition to our customers.
Okay. The next question for Ramneek, the first one, how do founders from non-tech backgrounds set up the foundation of a tech-based scalable business in the validation days?
Yeah, I think this is much easier done now than before, because it is not even about the background. It is about how much time do you want to invest and how much development do you want to do before you test out an idea. So be it tech or non-tech, I think it is equally important for everybody to test out ideas quickly. And the no-code movement has really given us a lot of tools, be it from Airtable to Zapier to all of these tools which are available. Anyone can come up with a MVP or a prototype to test out things very quickly and see how it performs. So I would say just go for that. Just go for all the no-code movement tools and try to roll out your projects, even if you've got a huge team, because you want your team to be working on things which matter. And 10 out of 50 things will probably not work out.
Right. Okay. Vish, maybe the next question, if you could take a crack at that. The question is, what are some ways a small business can introduce flexibility into their product? Since we talked about flexibility earlier, when it is focused towards a single use case, is the only option to start out with a multi-use case product?
Yeah, Arindam, before I answer that, I just want to do a quick time check if we have time for it. I'm happy to take it.
I think we'll just, I think maybe we'll take this question and we'll wrap it up after that.
Sounds good. Look, I think if you do the right things, you'll not stay a small business for too long, hopefully. The idea, even for large businesses, the way they became large businesses, as we were talking earlier in the conversation, is to take one thing and do it really well and use that to wedge open a bigger opportunity for yourself, right? So I actually think a small business with big ambitions has as much an advantage as any other setup. And so it's important to serve that one use case very well and then chain up to or ladder up to other opportunities that come by.
Got it. Cool. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining in. This was a really insightful discussion. I personally learned a lot about how each one of you guys have kind of shaped up your careers and the learnings that you've had. And thanks for sharing those with the audience. I'm very kind of sure that the audience also would have loved this discussion. Thanks once again, and thanks to the Maker Summit for organizing this.
Thank you guys. That was a really insightful session. I personally love all the personal anecdotes you brought to the table. Personally, the best part was when you guys talked about the tech debt, because people don't really understand that so in depth, and you guys really highlighted the entire importance around the topic. Well, I won't take much time of you. Thank you so much for joining and making it such an amazing session, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Akash. Thank you, Arindam.
Now, before I end the session, why don't you guys go check our reception? We have created the perfect platform where not only you can chat and network with whoever you want, but also interact with Netcore, Microsoft, Inc42, and more on the exhibition booth. So go see our reception and avail the benefits we have for you. Bye bye.